Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to our episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and it's a short week. It's a short week, but at least we remain home as the Green Bay mother-loving Packers are 3-0, sitting on top of the NFC North. We would be the only undefeated team, but the Lions, unfortunately, are there too. And so, with that being said, a game that I had circled as soon as the schedule came out may have lost a little bit of its muster, but I expect the Eagles to come out swinging this Thursday night on a short week. And so, because of that, we bring on, of course, an opposing fan from the team that we will be victimizing, hopefully, on Thursday, and that is our good friend, Eagles fan, Brendan. Thank you so much for coming on, bud. Much appreciated.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Brendan, I've been wanting to talk to an Eagles fan since the beginning of the season, really. Actually, since like a couple seasons ago, because your past two seasons have been absolutely phenomenal if you're an Eagles fan. Obviously, you got that first Super Bowl ring, which has to feel just warm and fuzzy on the inside of your heart there. And, even a respectable divisional round last year, and you beat the Bears and became an everlasting meme with the double doink. So, literally, all things are looking good as an Eagles fan. But I do have to ask, I'm assuming that it hasn't happened within the past couple of years. How did you find yourself to be a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles?
So, Tom, a little bit about me. So, I grew up in Southeast Philadelphia. Southeast Pennsylvania. I grew up in this area from an Italian Irish household, so a lot of it is I wasn't allowed to be another fan of any other team. My father would not have liked that, but thankfully, I remember as a kid, I think I was around 8 or 9 years old, Super Bowl 39, I think it was, watching the Eagles versus the Patriots, and out of that game, I started to think, you know what? I like this team. This team isn't horrible all the time, but we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I am curious. So, it's kind of been, I don't want to say forced upon you, but a little bit. It sounds like a little forced upon. But you inherited it, I think, is a better term.
I would agree with that. Yes, me and my father have watched almost every game on Sundays until, of course, I got a job and I work Sundays.
Oh, God, yeah. Adult life just sucks the ever-living joy and happiness out of just everything you once loved. Yes, I'm very well aware of that. So, but talking about kind of being from Pennsylvania, and Eagles fans, I feel like, have a reputation in that.
I do. We're going to get to this eventually. This is early.
I feel like, so every Eagles fan that I've talked to on this show, this is the 5th season that we've done this show, and I've had a few Eagles fans on, and they have been pretty much nothing but very pleasant and friendly. But yes. I feel like they definitely do have a reputation of being, I don't know if I want to say rowdy, let's just say very aggressive kind of fan base.
They're very aggressively passionate.
Ah, there you go. I like the way that you put that there. So, if you go to an Eagles game, at home, whether it's cheering injuries or just throwing things or what have you, what is your perspective from an Eagles fan kind of getting that kind of reception, or more being hey, this really isn't us? How do you feel with that kind of reputation floating over your head?
So with our team's reputation of our fan base, it's like a double-headed coin. On one side you see a lot of Eagles fans before the game, or after the game, they're all happy, they're talking about how good the game was, how good the team was. But during the game, all bets are off. All bets are off. We want the defensive line to destroy you. We don't want any sort of mercy shown to the other team. We've, of course, had our incidents with AA batteries, with Santa Claus, but I feel like that gives a little bit of zest to Eagles fans. People let's not mess with the fans while we're going to Philadelphia to watch the game. Let's try to just be quiet and just sit down and enjoy, clap, clap, clap.
The years ago, so this was 2014, the game where Dez didn't catch the ball in Lambeau. My dad, who's a diehard Cowboys fan, we were flying to Green Bay, and we had a layover in Philadelphia. And so it was like the day before the game, and I was decked out, of course, in like my Packers gear, and my father was too afraid to actually wear anything that resembled the Dallas Cowboys being in Philly. And like I just remember like so many fans going, "I hope you kill Tony Romo." And of course at me at the time I was like, "Me too." And like I felt loved and appreciated there at that moment. So I think what it boils down to is, yeah, sure, you have some fans that kind of like ruin it for everybody else, but like you have a very passionate fan base.
We do, yeah, we definitely do. Especially when it comes to Eagles fans, you have to love them unconditionally because every year there's something. There's always something every year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, listen, like as we were just talking about before, these past 2 years, like you have found a ton of success. And I still remember back in the days of like, the dream team where you got all these free agents and Chip Kelly and everything like that. And
If I remember right, that's Mike Vick, Asante Samuel, Nnamdi Asomugha, all that. Like, yep. Oh god, that season.
yeah, and then it was just like, oh no, never mind. And again, like you have Carson Wentz from a few years ago who like immediately was in the running for MVP, had an incredible season. And then he goes down with an injury, and I will be one of the first one to admit, I was like, oh, okay, the Eagles, they aren't going to do anything. Like, because Carson Wentz is out, it's Nick Foles who's in, the NFC has some stiff competition, and you guys kicked ass, and thankfully, you kicked the Vikings out of the NFC Championship game, because if I had to hear a freaking Minnesota Vikings fan talking about how we played a Super Bowl in their stadium, and if they, God forbid, they won that, God forbid. So I will always forever be indebted to your team. But kind of walk me through these last 2 seasons, because I feel like there has to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. But now at the same time, you're like, okay, Nick Foles was the guy who's kind of led us after the Wentz injuries. Kind of like walk me through these past 2 seasons and kind of where we're at now.
All right. So, of course, the Super Bowl 52 run 2 years ago, that entire regular season was just like, we were not expecting to be the top of our division that year. Like, granted, we were kind of expecting to go head-to-head the Cowboys like we always do because the Giants and Redskins don't do anything. But we weren't expecting to, like, go on this monster, like, 30 touchdown, 2 interception season so far for Carson Wentz. We were, like, on top of the world. But then after that injury, I even remember in my house, I was off that day. I remember in my house with my dad, and he just says, "We're done."
Yeah.
He just stood up, walked away after he hurt his, I think it was his leg on that attempt touchdown run. And then we just went through the next weeks like, let's try to get Nick Foles ready. We're all around first seed, bench the starters. And then the playoffs came, and if I remember right, a Falcons in the first round.
Yep.
Very tough game. It was a very competitive game throughout. It kind of showed some glaring weaknesses on the team too. So like we knew what to fix. And then of course, we won that game. Of course, the the conference championship against the Vikings. Now, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but it was all over the news on Sunday night. Some Vikings fan put a purple jersey on the Rocky statue.
Oh my God.
And it was almost immediately taken down. But I feel like the Vikings fans who were in the stadium were expecting a blowout win, that their defense was going to dominate. Oh boy.
Yeah.
It was that was the funnest game I've watched all season, hands down.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And then of course the Super Bowl, like going into the week, I was talking with some friends, talking to my father, of course, and we were just saying we cannot win a shootout against Tom Brady. Winning a shootout against Tom Brady is a really hard thing to do, and that's what we were hoping our defense would step up, which they did to some accord. But of course, Tom Brady had several hundred yards passing. I think it was like his career high in Super Bowl. And then, I kid you not, while they're on that second to final drive, my father went up to go grab some drink from the kitchen, and I see Brandon Graham strip it, and we lost it. This yelling, "That's our ball!"
I love it.
And of course, all said and done, we win the Super Bowl. Me and my father are crying because he's been waiting 40 plus years for this.
Yeah.
And then I get off work, quote unquote, sick, to go see the parade down in Philadelphia.
Yep.
It's like, okay, you guys know me. I'm not coming to work today. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. The next season, Carson Wentz coming back from injury. We're all thinking he's good. It was a really up and down season.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, we're not finishing out games. We are playing these like way too close, very similar to this season. And like we didn't have any sort of hope after Carson Wentz again went down in the Dallas Cowboys game.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, as your reaction video proved otherwise, are you freaking kidding me?
Uh-huh.
Nick Foles, Nick Foles, he is some magic. Apparently, only in the state of Pennsylvania. Sorry, Jacksonville.
Yeah, yikes.
I felt so bad. And then, well, watching that playoff run, the Bears game, like when we even made the playoffs, I was excited. I actually just discovered a song by Panic at the Disco called "High Hopes," and I'm like, that's what we got. We got high hopes.
I love it.
And then of course the double doink, which made me laugh because Cody Parkey used VR kicker, and it's just like, I I don't even know. Bears fans were terrified, horrified that this even happened. And then when we went to New Orleans, I was at work that day, sadly. But double pizzas at a local pizza joint, so that was nice to get.
There you go.
It looked so good the beginning half. We were dominating through the air. We had some good run game success. And then of course Drew Brees is Drew Brees. He's a great quarterback, and he worked our offense. Worked our defense. Our defense's weakness was shown that game, that we can't cover. I love our team. We cannot cover. He picked us apart, and then almost tied it at the end. But then of course Alshon dropped it,
Yep.
which
right through the hands.
Right through his hands. It's I just hear about it and I'm like, did he break his hand? Like, you're out.
Like,
You're
what
Alshon
happened?
Jeffrey.
What exactly happened to the point where you dropped this ball? Because again,
I
it
think
was a clean pass.
Yes, it was. I think supposedly he had bruised ribs on that play. We had 2 timeouts and we were just hurrying the ball up too much. We didn't need to take these unnecessary risks. We should have had Alshon make sure it was 100% before that play. But then of course after we lose, I'm only rooting for Drew Brees to get to another Super Bowl, and then they lose to the Rams. I'm like,
Yep.
I don't care who wins.
Yeah.
I really do not care who wins.
I feel like that was like the consensus for last year's Super Bowl, and the fact that like the game was also, again, if you love defenses, sure, then that was your game. But from like a regular kind of like fan, you watch that and you're like, this is brutal. And then they didn't even play SpongeBob at halftime. Like, it really just did not hit on any cylinder at all. So, I mean, like, but you have to be at least, again, you've had these 2 seasons of success, and then you're like, okay, this is the season. Carson Wentz back healthy. Like, here we go. Like, let's do it again. And I remember, week 1, obviously only a couple weeks ago, against the Redskins, because I was sitting here because that was only the local game that was being shown. And like the Redskins came out and I was like, oh crap, like are the Redskins like really good this year? And everybody like slept on Case Keenum and we're like, hey, no, they're going to be really, really good. And then the Eagles eventually, found their way back. But I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's a divisional thing. The division games you could always throw out the window, trying to predict them because they can go either way. A team that could be doing amazing could really struggle against a divisional rival. But kind of fast forward a little bit, obviously injuries are kind of plaguing your team right now, and this past Sunday that was evident. But again, like even this past Sunday, I caught the tail end of the Lions game. Like you had chances definitely to win that game,
100%.
Even at the end. And so the thing I'm going to get to is because I even have commenters who are starting to comment about how like Wentz, like they're done with him. And for me, like obviously not being an Eagles fan, like that is already coming to a shock because 2 years ago the guy was literally like MVP caliber. So like where does your stance on Carson Wentz right now, who again, like 6 touchdowns in the past few weeks, 2 interceptions, completing about 61% of his passes, like has like the Eagles fan base only 3 games in kind of like lost faith in Carson Wentz, or are we still thinking like we can turn the ship around once we get healthy?
So this is again how like Eagles fans they get overly passionate when something's not going right. It happened with Donovan McNabb. It happened with Nick Foles during the end of the season. The Super Bowl run, people thinking he can't play in the playoffs. Because he only played 1 game, but he didn't look the best either. I think Eagles fans need to understand that the offensive line is playing slow. They I watched our two games, Falcons game and the Redskins game. I didn't get to watch the Lions game, sadly. But our offensive line was slow getting up. They are not putting up the blocks as well as they were the previous 2 years. Peters is down like half the game. Brandon Brooks sometimes has to leave the field. Jason Kelsey walked to the other sideline in the Atlanta game. I kid you not, he walked to the other sideline. There's a delay of game because there's a delay of game to get him over to the medical tent because he went to the wrong sideline. And then of course our receivers are down. Jeffrey, Deshaun, Goddard's hurt. That's three of our big weapons just done for a few weeks. And Carson Wentz is frustrated. Carson Wentz is extremely frustrated because, especially after the Lions game, no one can hold on to the ball. We were dropping, we were fumbling. I think there's like 3 fumbles we lost that game.
Yeah.
To the Lions. I think we had 4 total, but I think we got 1 back. But we need to understand that Carson Wentz isn't the one-man show anymore. He needs the supporting cast. While the supporting cast is injured, the team's going to suffer a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're primarily being like, hey guys, calm down. Injuries are playing a big part, taking a major toll on the team right now. Let's not lose the faith just yet, because you're in a division where, like, you know, there is some room for error because you have the Cowboys, right? But other than that, that's really the only team you have to worry about in that division right now.
I mean, I don't know. Daniel Jones, he came out on that Week 3 game, and he's scary. He is actually not bad.
I mean, like, the Buccaneers should have still won that game because they should have hit that, like, last, field goal that was less than, like, 40 yards away. But, no, yeah, like, there could be a change of guard, but with Saquon Barkley hurt for who knows how long that's going to be, like, that already takes away a huge weapon. I feel like the Giants are going to be one of those teams that, they may make it competitive, but at the end of the day, I feel like your real competition right now in front of you is the Cowboys. And
100%.
And I will say this, they've beaten teams that have a combined total of 1 win.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I am like, I get it. Cowboys fans like have to hold on to like that something of like, we're really good. And I'm like, pump the brakes just a tiny bit.
You're beating up the Three Stooges here. You're beating up the Three Stooges. You're not really. These aren't the high caliber teams yet.
No, they aren't. And so, kind of looking at what you've gotten thus far, right? Obviously, a disappointing start to the season. Now you're going to Lambeau in Week 4, to take on the Packers, whose defense has looked really, really good, but similar. Their offense, they've shown flashes of, oh man, they're really great, but they've struggled. They have not put a complete game together as of yet. And so kind of taking a look, and we'll talk about season next, kind of what are you looking at for this game on Thursday? Again, coming off your injury, I just saw a few hours ago, they're slightly optimistic that Alshon Jeffrey will play. But kind of how do you see this game going on Thursday?
So on Thursday, the way I see this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches. Both of our defensive lines, yours and ours, have the ability to create so much disruption, so much pass rush, that if the Packers can do what they've been doing these past few weeks, getting, I think, 6 sacks last week, and then I think it was 3 or 4 the week before?
Yeah, something like that, which is, again, the fact that you just said Packers and pass rush in the same sentence, I still can't believe it, and it makes me just so happy.
I'm terrified. I am 100% terrified because the problem we've been having this entire season is that we can't pass the ball because they're getting to the backfield, and we can't run the ball because we can't block. Our run offense has been good to an extent, but our problem is that we can't run these outside runs only getting 3 yards like every time. We need to get bigger plays opened up by these guards, but for some reason the blocks aren't holding. Sanders is losing yards, and we're not giving the ball to Jordan Howard, which is absolutely baffling me that we traded him, got him for a steal, and then we're going to give him 12 carries a game, where Miles Sanders gets 26. I'm like, or 20. I'm like, who's the starting running back now?
Well, I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, what the hell is going on with your backfield? Because you got Jordan Howard I completely agree. Like, you got him for basically what it was, a steal. And, you got Miles Sanders. There was some hope there. Darren Sproles, I was literally, when they said his name, I was like, oh crap, he's still on the team? Like, I feel like he is the guy that just like, and he's so elusive that even though he's like, at this point, I'm just gonna guess like 65 years old, he's still, I'm like, damn, like that kid can still play. And he had a great catch this past Sunday. Unfortunately, he pushed off and drew the flag for pass
Yes, he did.
interference.
I heard it.
Yeah, so like what is it? Because I feel like that has to be part of it too. Obviously, the offensive line woes don't help, but you were mentioning before that you can't put it all on Carson Wentz, and you have to have some kind of running game to aid him in some way. But I feel like for the past couple years, I feel like the running game has been either very hot or cold, and trying to determine like what that backfield is going to be. Is it just going to be by committee? Is there going to be a lead back? You had Jay Ajayi for a while. What is the status right now of your backfield?
So for the past 3 seasons, going back to the Super Bowl run too, we've obviously been running the bye committee. We had the 1-2 punch of Ajayi, Blunt, and then Clement in the receiving game, who is a great receiving back. I love when he's on the field like that. But of course, he hasn't seen the field much this year yet, which is making me wonder why he's still on the team. Anyway, and then the past 2 seasons, we've tried to just run by committee, but then last season we didn't really have even a number 1 back because Ajayi got hurt, so it was Smallwood, Adams, Clement picking up all these carries. Sproles, of course, got injured as well. Then Clement went down, and then it was Smallwood and Adams. Adams showed some great strides, had some really big runs that were sadly taken away by penalties. I'm surprised. I'm honestly really surprised he did not make the team this season. I guess that was mostly because they brought Darren Sproles back for another season. Even though he looks great, he looked great on the week 1. It's just we need to have a lead back. The one guy who's going to pound the ball 3 times in a row, or 3 times and then get off, and then come back 3 times and get off. We need to stop trying to switch all these backs, trying to switch all these like different formations, because as of right now, everyone knows what we're doing. We're running outside of Sanders. We're running inside of Howard. We've done that. We did that a lot last week. We did a lot in the Falcons game. Even though, again, once we get down to these deficits where we're down 10 points at halftime, 20 points at halftime, we can't run the ball anymore. The run game is completely stripped from us, and then we put the weight on Carson Wentz again, and he just tries his best and does what he can and nearly gets us to win. But then again, he can't catch the ball.
Yeah. No, and I feel like that what you're saying is very reminiscent of like what we've had with the Packers. In that,
Yes.
You had Eddie Lacy for like a season or 2, and you're like, oh, yes, finally, he's good. Because you had James Starks, during our Super Bowl run, which is now forever ago. And we've been looking for like that number 1 back. We had Starks come back a little bit. We had Kuhn, who was our fullback / running back. But there were years where Aaron Rodgers was like the number 1 back, and he's the quarterback. And
yes,
so,
exactly.
we had Ty Montgomery, and now, like, we are doing a little bit of a committee action with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. We'll throw Dexter Williams in there eventually. But you're hitting on a point that is so incredibly important, because when it comes to, the Super Bowl run, while yes, Nick Foles, that man earned every single dollar of his contract, every single penny. But like that run would not have happened without that defense. Because it can't just be, like you said, a one-man show. And like it's weird now that the Packers offense is kind of like, taking some time to have some growing pains here, while the defense is kind of stealing the show, which it hasn't been like that in like since I've been alive. I mean, the Super Bowl run, we had a lot of, turnovers, but like this is like an actual dominant defense that we're seeing. We had some run defense issues for the past couple weeks, but
Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, Philip Lindsay and Dalvin Cook the week before. But I mean, like, this is something that is different for a lot of Packer fans, and kind of heading into Thursday, it's going to be interesting, especially if you guys still have a bunch of injuries. Is our offense, I think the big question on every Packers fan is, like, is the offense finally going to click? Are we finally going to put a full game together? And so looking at the state of your defense, what kind of looks are you seeing from your defense? Is it something that, again, just rattled by injury, you're still waiting for them to kind of play up to form? Or, do you think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers kind of put together his first game?
I've been thinking about this ever since, watching the Packers start 3-0 and watching my Eagles defense. And I'm like, he's going to tear us to shreds. He's going to pick apart this secondary, because Ronald Darby has been having problems getting burnt down by, especially in the Falcons game. I think he led 180 yards to both Julio and Calvin Ridley when he's supposed to be covering them. Apparently, we can't decide who's starting on the other side, because Avonte Maddox started last week, Sidney Jones the week before. We're having a lot of problems with our secondary, and Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback like Matt Ryan, like many other veterans who are going to look at this defense and just take it apart one by one. Of course, the Eagles, the solution to that would probably just get the pass rush home, try to get him rattled, try to get some blitz like with Sendejo, with Jenkins, maybe throw Rasul on a blitz. But right now, our front four is not getting it done. I have been extremely disappointed with how much little pressure these four guys are getting. Of course, Fletcher Cox demands double team. He is the guy who's going to take up that secondary offensive lineman and try to get these other guys on one-on-ones. But Brandon Graham has gotten a few pressures, not too much to write home about. Derek Barnett has barely played. And we just haven't seen a pass rush out of the Eagles defense unless we're blitzing. But then when we blitz, like that Julio Jones catch, we are susceptible to being easily countered into a deep play, even on a little screen. Jake Matthews saw the blitz coming, pulled off the block to get a 3-man advantage on the outside, and that ended up being the game-winning touchdown.
So I mean, at this point, right? You start the season 1-2, obviously not where we need to be, and
yes.
You easily could have been 3-0. Right, the Falcons game. If it wasn't for Julio Jones deciding to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go score a touchdown now, guys. Thank you. Near the end of the game with the Lions, there was many opportunities to seal that game as well. At this point, if you lose at Lambeau and start the season off at 1-3, at what point do you start to panic and be like, okay, this is problematic, or and again, this is what I remind everyone, whether we're 3-0, 0-3, what have you, it is just week 4. It is still very, very early in the season. Injuries, hopefully not to the Packers or more to the Eagles, but injuries happen, teams evolve, they look very different. I don't want the offense that just showed up to week 3 to show up in week 11. And so
exactly.
When looking at this, even though I think that's our bye, that was a weird number. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that at what point for the Eagles fan base or for you personally are you like, okay, this is a problem? Or is your schedule forgiving enough where it's you know what, okay, if we start 1-3, we still have plenty of time to kind of get back into it. We just can't drop too much more.
I believe the last way you put it, I believe that's exactly how most Eagles fans feel. It's a 1-2 start right now. It's rough, especially compared to our last 2 seasons. We usually start really hot and then we kind of falter off near the end. I kind of like to switch the pace a little bit. We're beating up a little bit. We're taking our time to get back healthy, get everyone ready, and try to make a better half in these hopefully the later portions of the season. I don't think it's time to panic just yet. Even if we lose at Lambeau this week, I don't think it's time to panic. I think wait a few weeks. We're gonna have Goddard, Jackson back hopefully. And then hopefully we can get these guys standing up healthy so that we don't have a left tackle playing tight end.
Yeah.
All we need to focus on is letting the organization do what they need to do to get this team ready, because we've shown that we can compete with these teams that we've all played against. Every game we've won or lost, I believe, has been decided by at least one score. But of course, there is a little bit of worry that the defense isn't looking great against these, at least for some people were thinking some mediocre offenses, with the Lions, with the Redskins. People didn't think, no one expected Case Keenum to be throwing all over this team. No one expected Kerryon Johnson I can't remember his name, but that 44-yard run on the Lions game, no one's been expecting that. So we just gotta wait and hope this defense can, pull himself together, because there's definitely a lot of talent there, and try to win more games down the stretch, especially in the division. The division games for this team is going to be the make or break whether or not we will go to the playoff even as a wild card.
Yeah, and I think what we were just talking about with the Cowboys, right? Those are going to be the games that you circle on the schedule and you're like, okay, this is when it's time to do the dance. Because, the Cowboys, there are times where Dak Prescott has looked very impressive and I'm like, oh, okay, he's going to get a big paycheck. And then there's times where he struggles against the Dolphins. There's I feel like, because it's funny you say this, there's a video that's going to come out on Monday when this is going to come out later, but about looking at the undefeated teams thus far, and the majority of them, there's only 3 out of the remaining 8 that have actually beaten teams with a winning record. And so I feel like these teams, like we haven't seen, like obviously the Patriots are killing it, the Chiefs are killing it, but
Hmm.
other than that, like those two teams seem like the only ones I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to put my stock in them because everyone else before, like there's a lot of question marks. The teams that they're beating are just not really good, or they have injuries, or their backups are in, or what have you. And so, like again, for Eagles fans or even Packers fans, like it is still super early, and as the weeks continue to progress and we start getting, to October and things like that, that's when we're really going to start to see, what teams are for real. And, that could be the Eagles. They're beaten up right now. And for the Packers, I mean, fortunate for us, we are getting you on a short week when you guys do have a bunch of injuries, so we may be able to pull out a win here. Because, if we played this game later in the season, right now you're saying you're terrified. I don't know if it's going to be the same outcome, if your team is super duper healthy and starting to get on a roll.
Right, I would agree with that too. Right now, the Packers, their defense is looking great and their offense is looking competent, at
Yeah.
least to say the least. And as long as your defense holds up against our offense, I don't think you have any problem against the Eagles' defense. However, that could surprise me. Jim Schwartz might come out and coach the best game of his life, sacking Rodgers 8 times. Let's. I hope so. Let's hope you not so.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Yeah, so I think overall, like if you had to take if you want to give it either answer or both, when you were looking at this schedule in the beginning of the year or looking at this schedule right now, where do you kind of see the Eagles finishing for the year? Do you see yourselves getting the wild card spot?
I think the Eagles, as of right now, I believe we might sneak in with a 9-7 record. I'm being realistic with my expectation with that. Of course, we could even just pull off the unthinkable and go 12-4, somehow stomping the rest of the teams in the season. But I think realistically a 9-7 record, because we usually go split with the Cowboys. I don't really know how well we're going to do this week. We have the Patriots, I believe, as well later this season. We have a lot of tough games on the schedule still. Granted, not as tough as the Cowboys have it, but we still have some tough games left to go. I do think the Eagles will make a wild card run again, like last year. We're going to we're fight our way back, as the underdogs, as everyone likes to call us. Which trust me, I love that to the most extent. And I feel like people were a little overhyping us at the beginning of the season, like kind of the Cleveland Browns. Everyone thought the Cleveland Browns were going to come out and dominate every team. You got to understand that injuries are part of the game, and now we got to play a man up. Nelson Aguilar needs to catch a ball now, and I think 9-7 is a good record. I think that's my realistic expectation. We'll make a wild card run. If not, then I think at midseason, if we're still playing this bad, maybe if we're 2-6 or something like that, please no. I say we just play for the draft pick. There's some really great talent coming out of this draft, so I think we play the win, but we don't play to dominate.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think let's put it this way. The Packers will do their very best to knock off the Cowboys for you. We would be happy to do so.
I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. And if you find yourself playing the Bears, the Vikings, we all know it's not going to be the Lions, in the playoffs, I will be rooting for you. But if it's the Packers, then no. Then that's a big no.
Past 3 years, we're 2-0 against you NFC North guys.
Yes, and I'm okay with that. I could not be happier about that statistic, and I just hope that doesn't continue this year if it's against the Packers. If any other NFC North team, you go right ahead. You beat them up. You double doink. You blow them out. Get Nick Foles in there on a stretcher. I don't care. You beat them however you need to beat them. That's totally fine. But Brendan, I greatly appreciate you coming on, bud, and talking about your Eagles, talking about this Thursday. Where can all the peoples find you if you want to be found?
Yeah, no problem. You can find me on Instagram and this is the worst way to pronounce it, but it's the way to pronounce it, Shadow Teot, SHAWDOWTAOT. I post regularly of my latte art because I am a coffee master.
Nice. Hells to the yes. But Brendan, it was a pleasure talking to you. I do wish you well for the rest of the season, just not this Thursday, but every other time. I wish you luck. I hope you beat the Patriots and beat the Cowboys and all that great stuff. And potentially we will see you in the playoffs if we wind up making it there as well.
Yes, we'll see you then. See you Thursday.
Absolutely.
And of course, if we do somehow come out and beat you guys to pulp, I will be sending you all the memes.
Oh, absolutely. I would expect nothing less. Absolutely nothing less. All right, we got the Green Bay Packers looking to continue their undefeated streak this Thursday before we have another home game against the Dallas Cowboys. It's not at Lambeau, but you know that's our home too. But let me know what you think about the game, what you're looking forward to. Hopefully a good 4-0 start for the Green Bay Packers. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And check out patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy for all your supporting me needs. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.